All right, so today I want to talk to you about two different tools that I use to help me determine where I might want to live, either now, sort of as I head into early retirement, or when I actually get to retirement. And the second tool is going to help me understand how much money do I have, how much money will that generate throughout retirement, and will that sustain me either here in the United States or in a country that I choose to live in, and specifically a city in that country. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first tool, and it's a website called Numbeo. So I'll put that up on the screen here in a second. But Numbeo is a great site. You can compare city to city, and that's generally how I recommend it. I think you can compare country to country, but that's really a very skewed sort of view. I wouldn't compare the United States to, say, Thailand, because does that mean you live in Mississippi or New York City? A huge difference between those two things and how they relate to Thailand. But you can compare your city. If you say you live in Biloxi and you want to live in Chiang Mai, Thailand, you can compare that city and get a sense of what you're spending now as compared to living in Chiang Mai. Or I don't even know how many countries and cities they have around the world, but they've got a ton of them. And for the most part, I've always found the city I was looking for in Numbeo. So let's go ahead and jump over to that website and check it out. All right, so here we are on Numbeo. Now, what does Numbeo stand for? I don't know. I'm sure it's very clever, but I don't know what it means. But don't worry about the link. I'll go ahead and put that in the description. You can click on it there. But when you get to the Numbeo, you can compare the cost of living. Now, you can do a lot of things on Numbeo, crime indexes and things of this nature. But for this conversation, we're going to talk about comparing two cities, the city you live in and the city you may want to move to. And I use this all the time. Sometimes I might read an article or I'll watch a YouTube video or whatever about a city that I'm just not that familiar with, and I'll plug it in and say, oh, okay, that's how much it costs to live in that city. And it might be something I want to add to my list of places to research and maybe think about going to visit or explore or maybe someday retire. So I'm going to put in where I live now, which is San Diego. This is a little unfair because San Diego is ridiculously expensive. Let's not beat around the bush. It is. And I'm going to put in Chiang Mai because I have a very good friend who lives in Chiang Mai and has lived there now for 3 or 4 years, and he loves it, and it is very inexpensive. And I think as soon as we see this, we're all going to want to move to Chiang Mai. So here we go. Compare. So here's a couple good bits of information right off the top. The first one I noticed is this. If you live in San Diego and you make $8,400 a month, to have that same lifestyle, you only need to make about $2,200 a month in Chiang Mai. You're dropping considerably right there, right? $2,200 to $8,400. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, is that what it costs to live there? Not necessarily. They're comparing the expense of what you make. Obviously, there's some math involved here to what that same level would cost there. Meaning, you might have a nice big house here. If to have a big house there, it's going to be more expensive. But could you live on less? Yeah, absolutely. When my friend first moved there, I should say, he was spending like $600-700 a month. I've got a video on that. I'll link up here. It was really very inexpensive. His first apartment was only $325. Now he's moved. He pays a little bit more, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But again, you're dropping from $8,400 down to $2,200. Very, very, very affordable. Rent prices are 88% lower in Chiang Mai than in San Diego. Again, that sounds insane, but it's not. It's actually just the reality. So let's look at a couple different things. Numbeo lists a bunch of different things you can use as comparisons. I saw two of these right off the top of my head that I noticed because one of these I did today and one I'm going to do tonight. So I dropped my wife at the airport today, and on the way back, I had to swing by a fast food place because I needed to get back home for a meeting. I swung by, swung by Jack in the Box, which is like every other fast food place, right? I got a chicken sandwich, large fry, large drink. And it was about $13 and some change, probably because it was a large compared to this $12. So this number is really accurate. $12 for a McDonald's sort of meal. In Chiang Mai, that same meal was about $5.50. That's a huge difference. It's dramatic by itself, but it's more dramatic when you compare this. And I think this is also pretty accurate. If I go to a regular restaurant, which tonight I'm going to go play trivia, and I'm going to get probably a beer and some chicken wings, and that's going to cost me probably $30. Give or take, it's a $30 meal when it's all said and done. So they have 25 here. Yeah, that's totally reasonable. It could even be a little low. That same over there, $1.37. Yeah. In fact, my friend has mentioned on his channel many times about very inexpensive meals. Are they always $1.37? No. I mean, they do have very expensive restaurants as well. Let me take that back. They have costly restaurants that are very high relative to the normal restaurants over there that you and I would still find to be less money. They still may spend $50 or even $100. That is rare, and you're talking about a really high-end restaurant. $50 here, it's not that big of a deal, right? I mean, $50 is not that big of a deal type of restaurant. It is not what I would call high-end by any means. Hey, if you like this sort of content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified every time we drop some new content. It really helps the channel grow. Thanks a lot. I'm looking at the rent. I'm going to compare this. So this is a one-bedroom here in San Diego. Yeah, almost $3,000 for a one-bedroom. Yeah, definitely all day long. Can it go higher? Yeah. Can it go lower? Yes, but not really low. You're not going to find a one-bedroom in San Diego for $1,000. You're not going to find very many for $1,500. They're going to run you $2,000, give or take, for a one-bedroom, and it's going to go up from there. So, yeah, you can easily spend $3,000. You can easily spend $5,000 or $6,000 on a one-bedroom here. $350 in Chiang Mai. Now $350 sounds ridiculous. Is that possible? Yes. Is it all the time? Probably not. Although, my friend Greg, go back to him, his first apartment, and I'll put a link up here in the top to a video I did with him when he first moved over. He was paying $325 for a one-bedroom in a very nice building with a big luxury pool, a full gym. I think he had a doorman. I mean, a nice new building. He was paying $325. Now, since then, he has moved and he is living in a 4 or 5 bedroom house with a big yard, mango trees. I think he has a pool. I can't remember. And I want to say he spends about $800. I couldn't rent the room I'm in for $800 here in San Diego. He has a 4-bedroom house with mango trees. So he gets breakfast for free. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, but can you spend $350 for a 1-bedroom apartment in Chiang Mai? Yeah. So again, 88% less. That is absolutely possible. So again, Numbeo is a great site. When you go to that main page, just plug in where you live, where you think you might want to live. Take a look at the cost of living. So now that we've looked at the cost of living, and we saw in this case, you can spend 88% less, right? So what is that? 12% of whatever you're spending, you can spend 12% over there. Just a different way of saying it. Now let's look at the calculator that I built that will show you how much money you have and how far that money will go now that we have a reduced expectation of how much you need to spend. So let's jump over that calculator right now. Hey, so question of the day, where do you think you're going to retire? Now that you've seen how to use this website and you can do your numbers a little better and you have a better sense of what you're going to need to retire as far as costs in other countries, is there one on the top of your list? Did you think that's the one? Do you have a top 3 or 4? I think I've got 3, 4, maybe even 5 countries. I'm just going to move around until I get bored, but that's me. What about you? Where do you think you're going to retire? Okay, so this is the 4% rule. And if you're not familiar with the 4% rule, I did a whole video on this calculator and what the 4% rule means. Go ahead and check that out in the link up here, and I'll put one in the description. But suffice it to say, essentially what that means, it's a guideline. And it means if you have some money in the bank in terms of your retirement money, you can afford to pull out about 4% every year for 30 years and not run out of money. Now, there are some caveats. That means the money is properly invested, not crazy aggressive and not super conservative, a nice balance that generates a little bit more than you withdraw. It also is a guideline in the sense that what you need your first year retirement is not what you need at 95 years old, right? At 62 in this person's case, they are driving, they're going to the movies, they're eating out, they're doing all the sort of things you do at 62. At 92, their lifestyle is drastically different. Some expenses are going to go up, like say maybe healthcare type of expenses. A lot of expenses are going to go down. They're not driving probably. They're not flying all over the world. I mean, there's a lot of things change. So the 4% rule is a general guideline to get you to last throughout your retirement and not run out of money. Let's look at how that applies to you, where you currently live, and whether or not you should maybe look at living someplace else, like Chiang Mai that we just talked about, or any place else in the world, and we'll see it here in just a second. So let's go through this. Let's say this person is 53 years old. They are going to retire at 62, and that's in 30, or they're going to retire for 30 years. Okay, that's a nice long retirement, probably in excess. Say a man, in my case, 30 years, 92. Could it happen? Yeah, it could. Will it happen? We'll see. 30 years. That's great. Here's the first thing you want to plug in that's really very specific. $50,000. I'm going to put this person as $50,000 in retirement money. An IRA, a 401k, just a general stock portfolio. They got 50 grand. That money is earning about 8% now through retirement. That's actually pretty reasonable. At retirement, they're going to be more conservative, and they're going to shift the focus of that money and how it's allocated. It's going to go down to about 5%. You and I may have different risk tolerances, so plug in the numbers that you think make sense for you. You know yourself way better than I do, but those are fairly comfortable numbers. I would be comfortable with them, but you need to be comfortable with. All right, so here's the first little piece of sort of tricky information to think about. We're talking about this person is today 53 years old. Today, they make 75 grand. Now, obviously, you're going to get a raise. You're going to get various raises, maybe get a promotion between now and 62, the next 9 years. So the 75 grand you make today is going to go up so that the last year of your working life, it's going to be a higher number, presumably, and in most cases it will be. The reason I say that is you're saying 75 grand today, but on that first year, or I should say your last year of working, that 75 grand will then be 87,000, okay? So that's why that number is there. Here's the number that people get optimistic, overly optimistic. When I was a financial advisor and I advised clients, I would say 75% of their income is what they will need at retirement. Now that strikes people as really high. They think, well, I won't need all that. Here's the problem. Retirement is a long timeline. You want to plan on the most expensive end, which is usually the first part, right? The day after you retire, you still have a car payment. If you had one yesterday, you have one tomorrow. If you had a house payment yesterday, you have one tomorrow. If you were eating food yesterday, you will eat food tomorrow. You see where I'm going with this? Your expenses don't drop drastically all at once. They will start to drop, but it's not immediate. Now, by the time you get to the end of that timeline, now you're in your 90s, yeah, you probably don't drive at all, so there's no car payments. If you had a mortgage, it's long been paid off. You may not eat as much as you did when you're younger. You probably aren't buying clothes and all the other things that you did when you were younger. It's just the way we live, right? You very well could be living with family and have almost all of your expenses being taken care of by your family. So the first year, though, 75% is really a pretty good solid number. So we're going to use that, and we'll see why what it does here in a minute. Now, remember, in this case, I had 87,000. I need 75%, which is 67,000. But my first year, I'm also going to get 18 grand in Social Security. You can look that up. I'll put that link in if I remember to do it in the description. You can look to see what your estimated Social Security withdrawal or Social Security income will be. But I'm going to say 18 grand for this case. Here's the first big problem. What that's saying is I need 67. I'm going to get 18 from Social Security. That means I have a shortfall my very first year of $49,000. I need to pull $49,000 from somewhere if I expect to maintain that same lifestyle that I said I wanted to have. All right? Now, the calculator does this. It says you need $49,000. It looks to see how much you have saved by that point, and it says you need to pull out, in this case, almost 19% of what you have saved to cover that shortfall. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. I'm going to scroll right down here to 19%. And that says, great, yes, you've got a little bit of a surplus that first year. You got $368. You did everything fine. But here's the problem. And I had to blow this up so you could see it on the camera. But if you scroll all the way to the right, we got a red. If you got red, red is never good. Red means you're running out of money. This is your very first year of retirement, 62. The very first year, I wind up with a little bit less than I had the year before. Because remember, I had pulled out 49 grand. I can't do that many years before. I actually could do that 5 years before I run out of money. And my 6th year, I don't have money. And now I'm in negative. Meaning, I show it as a negative, but quite frankly, should be zero because I don't have any place to dip into. I certainly can't dip into 24 grand and then 58 grand and so on and so forth. I am out of money and I'm 66 years old. What am I going to do? I'm going to go back to work at 66? For when? For the rest of my life, probably, right? If I don't want to do that, I have a problem that I need to address. Now, the first thing people think, they go back to the 75% that I said and say, okay, Mike, that sounds all well and good, but I don't need 75%. Okay, fine. Think about all of your expenses and cut them to what level you think you need. You say, oh, I only need 50%. Okay, I would challenge you on that, but let's say for the sake of argument, you only need 50%. What does that say? Okay, well, it says now you only have a shortfall of $27,000 based on you still have that same income of 18 grand, which means you only need to pull out just a little over 10%. So we're going to adjust this to 10.5 just to give us a little bit of a wiggle room. And what does that do for our red? It actually doesn't help. It helps a little bit. I mean, but it doesn't get us that far. It's only going to give us, 10 years before we run out of money. We were running out of money in 5 years, so we've doubled it. But now we're 72 years old and we got no money. Do I want to go back to work at 72 years old? No, I don't. So, where do we get the money? The problem is we don't. There's nowhere to get the money. There's no money. There's nothing to get. So we have to go back to our expenses. And this is why I say, and this is why we say this on the channel all the time, look around the world. I'm an American. I love America. But if I can't afford it, I can't afford it. You can't make 2 + 2 = 3. 2 + 2 is 4. It's not going to work any other way. So we looked at Chiang Mai earlier in Thailand, and it said there was a reduction of like 80-something%. So I'm going to say instead of the 50% or the 75%, if I move to Chiang Mai, I could probably live on 20%. And actually, it was a little bit more than that, I think, but I'm going to be a little conservative. I'm going to say 20%, which means I only need about 18 grand that first year, $18,014. I'm pulling in 18 on Social Security, which means I actually got just a tiny, tiny little bit of a deficit here, which is less than 1%. So this withdrawal amount, I can squeeze all the way down to 1%. What is that going to give me? It's going to give me a lot of blue, man. Look at that. Now, what this actually tells me is I've got such a great excess. You see here, I retired at 62. I pull that little bit of money I need every year, and my money goes up every year, which means I can afford to actually live life a little better. Maybe I pull out, I'll pull out 3%. What does that do? Nope. I'm dying at 92 with 400 grand. I can pull out more than that. I can pull out, what does this see, 6%? A little too far. I went too far. Do 4. You know what? At 4%, which goes back to the 4% rule, at 92 years old, I still got 138 grand in the bank. I've reduced it every year. It started. I had a point where I peaked at 70 years old, and then every year I started to get a little bit lower in my balance. But I'm pulling out plenty of money. I make it to 92, no sweat. That's the point of this calculator. Think about that. I made a huge difference by moving from wherever you live today to Chiang Mai, by taking my 75% requirement and dropping it to 20%. You know, it is up to you. I love America. I love having a Walgreens on the corner. I love having my 4Runner in the garage. I like being able to eat as well. I like to live indoors. Those are nice. So would I rather get rid of the Forerunner and get rid of the Walgreens and live in Chiang Mai and have $1.50 for my meals, but have money at the end of my life? Yeah, I think I would. So, yeah. So check out this calculator. Again, you can download this for free from the link below, but check it out. So you see, it's very important to know the numbers, not only here in the United States, but also abroad. You may think you have a bit of a struggle if you were to retire here in the United States, but as we've seen, there are lots of countries around the world where you can live very, very comfortably. Now, another question you might have is, what about Social Security? Can you get that when you live in another country? How do you get that? Are there any restrictions? Don't worry, I did a whole video on that. Check out that video right there. It's going to teach you all the different things you need to know about collecting Social Security while living in another country. Another question you might have, especially if this is your first time living out of the country, is where is it safe? Where's the cost of living low? And where do they speak a lot of English? Check out that video right there. I think you'll get a lot out of it. So in the meantime, until we talk again, keep on trekking.